Have you ever had that feeling like no matter how hard you work, the life you want just seems further away?
Yeah, that feeling that things are just getting more expensive.
Exactly. Like affording a house is this distant dream, debt keeps creeping up, and, the money you earn just doesn't go as far.
It's super common. And the source material we're diving into today, it lays out a pretty compelling reason why that might be happening.
Oh, yeah. What's the argument?
It talks about something called the vicious fiat cycle.
Okay, vicious fiat cycle sounds dramatic. What's the core idea there, according to this keynote?
So basically the argument is this. When governments or central banks print more money, the money you already have, well, it becomes worth less.
Right, inflation.
Exactly. But the source argues this erosion of value, it actually devalues the time and energy you spent earning that money in the first place.
Huh. Okay, so it makes things more expensive.
And kind of counterintuitively, it pushes people deeper into debt just to keep up, to
Right.
maintain their standard of living.
And the numbers in the source, they really paint a picture. We're talking over $18 trillion in household debt in the U.S. alone.
Yeah, and over $1 trillion of that is just credit card debt. It's huge.
And this stat blew my mind. The source says the U.S. dollar has lost something like 97% of its purchasing power since the Federal Reserve started back in 1913.
Wow. Yeah, those figures really underscore the scale of the problem being presented. It frames that debt, that loss of value, as a direct result of the monetary system itself.
So that's what we're digging into today. This keynote talk that diagnoses this problem suggests a potential solution.
And then highlights a really big challenge people face if they actually try to use that solution.
Right, what the speaker calls the hodler's dilemma.
Exactly. So we're going to unpack the arguments, look at the data points, the history mentioned in the talk.
To help you understand this whole picture, the problem with money now, the proposed alternative, and the real-world hurdles involved.
Let's jump in.
Okay, first, let's really get into the weeds on the problem, this vicious fiat cycle. How does the source say losing currency value makes life harder?
Well, the argument is that as more money gets printed, the cost of assets, houses, maybe stocks, and just the general cost of living, it goes up faster than wages do for most people.
So your paycheck just doesn't stretch as far.
Precisely. Your income isn't keeping pace with the inflation of the things you actually need or want to buy.
And that's the debt connection, right?
Yeah.
If you can't afford things outright because costs are rising, but your pay isn't.
You borrow. That's the path most people end up on. Credit cards, student loans, mortgages, even those buy now, pay later things.
The source kind of frames them less as simple choices and more as symptoms, symptoms of this underlying money problem.
Yeah, and the source shows charts on debt growth that are pretty stark, especially for younger generations. It feels like debt is almost baked into major life steps. Education, a car, trying to buy a home.
And it's not just individuals, is it? The source points out the government's in the same boat with its own debt.
Right. It's presented as a systemic issue tied to the debt-based nature of the whole financial system, something that affects everyone, really, regardless of political views.
The talk also makes a connection to a specific historical moment, 1971, when the U.S. went off the gold standard.
Yes, it draws a line between that decision untethering the dollar from gold and the rise in wealth inequality we've seen since.
How so?
The argument is that this shift massively benefited the very top, the top 1%, while for the bottom 90%, incomes have basically stagnated or even gone down in real terms.
They use some specific examples like house prices in places like New York or Boston just skyrocketing.
While average incomes in those same cities have barely moved, it's a powerful visual contrast.
It really highlights how assets inflate away from what people can actually earn.
And the source makes this point. Saving for a house used to take maybe a few years under the gold standard. Now, it could easily take a decade or more.
Makes you wonder if people saw this coming. The source brings up quotes from historical figures.
Yeah, like Thomas Jefferson and Henry Ford. They're presented as voices from the past who were skeptical about central banks and easy money.
What did they say?
Jefferson's quoted saying something like, banking institutions are more dangerous than standing armies. Pretty strong words.
Wow.
And their famous Henry Ford quote, the one about, if people understood the banking system, there'd be a revolution tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
That's in there too. The speaker even jokes he was apparently there when he said it.
Okay, so that's the problem laid out.
Yeah.
This cycle of money printing, devalued currency, rising costs, and more debt. What solution does the keynote offer?
The solution proposed is Bitcoin.
Okay.
And it's described really simply. Money nobody can print.
Money nobody can print.
Yeah, the idea is that because its supply is fixed, mathematically capped, no central authority can just create more of it out of thin air.
So it holds its value better against inflation.
That's the core argument. It's presented as a way to protect your time, your energy, the value you create from being constantly eroded.
Protect your time and energy.
Oh.
How does that work, practically?
Well, think about it. The value you get paid in fiat, like dollars, tends to leak away over time because of inflation. With Bitcoin, the claim is, because it's scarce, the value you store in it is preserved.
Or potentially even grows relative to those other currencies.
Right. And the source suggests this lets you actually build wealth, own assets long-term, maybe get out of debt eventually, and live with more financial sovereignty.
The talk even gives Bitcoin a sort of report card, grading it against gold and fiat money.
It does. And let's just say Bitcoin gets top marks in this presentation. Gold gets a C, fiat is called worse, and Bitcoin.
Straight A's.
Straight A's, according to the speaker.
Okay, what earns it those grades? What properties?
Well, it lists things like being fungible, portable, durable, divisible, basic money stuff.
Right.
But the key difference, the thing that directly tackles that fiat problem, is that it's unprintable, fixed supply. Plus, it's programmable, being digital, so it can be improved.
And performance-wise. The scoreboard, as the source calls it.
Yeah, that part presents Bitcoin as the best performing asset in history based on its compound annual growth rate.
Better than stocks, gold, real estate.
The source shows comparisons against all of those dollars: oil, houses, stocks, even groceries. Gold basically saying Bitcoin has outperformed them significantly over various time frames.
There's another quote attributed here, right? Will Rogers.
Ah, yes. The one about folding your money and putting it in your pocket is the quickest way to double it.
Unless you fold it and put it into Bitcoin. With the speaker again joking he was there.
Yeah, it frames Bitcoin not just as an investment, but as a kind of peaceful revolution, a way for individuals to opt out of a system they see as broken.
Okay, so the narrative is, fiat's the problem, Bitcoin's the scarce solution. Just stack sats, hold on, and you're good, right?
Yeah.
But then comes the twist.
Exactly. This is where the hodler's dilemma comes in, the central conflict.
What is the dilemma exactly?
It's this. What do you do when you own this asset you believe is incredibly valuable, super scarce, likely to appreciate, but you still need regular money, dollars, euros, whatever, just to live your life?
Right. Pay rent, buy food, cover bills.
Handle emergencies, maybe put a down payment on a house, start a business. You need fiat for almost everything day to day.
As the source says, you can't easily buy a chicken sandwich with Bitcoin today.
Not easily, no. And this dilemma is really tied into the Bitcoin culture, specifically that word, HODL.
HODL, which came from a typo, right?
Yeah, the source tells the story. 2013 Bitcoin forum, someone had maybe had a few drinks, trying to type hold during a market crash, misspelled it.
And it just stuck, became this huge meme.
A meme that evolved into this powerful idea, hold on for dear life. Basically, never sell your Bitcoin.
Wow. And the source even mentions the U.S. president apparently pledging not to sell government Bitcoin.
Yeah, it uses that anecdote to show just how deeply embedded this never sell idea has become. It's a powerful concept.
So the community says HODL. But then, the source points out, money isn't really the goal itself, is it?
Exactly. It's a means to an end. You don't value the paper bills or the Bitcoin clone intrinsically.
You value what it lets you do.
Right. Provide for your family, get educated, buy a home, have experiences, actually live.
And the speaker shares a personal story about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
About needing dollars.
Yeah, about having to sell some Bitcoin because, well, he needed money to live. Posing that question, what do you want me to starve myself to death?
It really highlights that tension between long-term belief in the asset
Yeah.
and the short-term need for regular cash.
Definitely. But there's also an important observation made.
Which is?
That the speaker has never met a wealthy Bitcoiner who's literally homeless and starving because they refuse to sell any Bitcoin.
Ah, okay. So in reality...
In reality, people do sell a little bit to live his life, as the source puts it. Accessing the value, even by selling small amounts, is often just practical.
Which leads to a deeper point, illustrated with an analogy.
Yes, the folktale of the miser and his gold.
Oh, the guy who buries his gold and just counts it.
That's the one. He buries it, counts it daily, feels rich, then a thief steals it.
And he's devastated.
Totally. Until a neighbor points out, look, you never used the gold. You just looked at it. You might as well bury a rock and look at that instead.
Ouch. Harsh, but I see the point.
And the source draws a direct line to the hodler's dilemma. The moral is, an asset, no matter how valuable in theory, is only worth the use you make of it.
So just age-old dealing Bitcoin forever, never tapping into its value to improve your life.
It's like burying the gold or the rock. You have this scarce thing, but its potential is locked up unused.
It forces you to think, how can I use this value without necessarily selling the underlying asset I believe in?
Exactly, which transitions perfectly into the next section of the talk, looking at a historical practice people have used for centuries to do just that.
Which is,
Borrowing against scarce, valuable assets instead of selling them.
using assets as collateral.
Precisely. The keynote gives historical examples. Think of the Dutch and British East India companies back in the 1600s.
Okay.
They didn't sell their ships or valuable cargo to fund the next voyage. They used those assets as collateral to borrow the money they needed to expand.
Makes sense. What else?
Or the building of the U.S. railroads. The source points out they were largely financed by using government land grants as collateral for loans, essentially mortgages, not by selling off all that land first.
Right. Leveraging the asset.
And more recently, think about how huge developments like Rockefeller Center in New York were built borrowing against the land and buildings, not selling the prime real estate.
Even modern examples like Elon Musk borrowing against his Tesla stock.
That's mentioned too. The pattern throughout history, according to the source, is that people with valuable, scarce assets, they want to find ways to borrow against them to get liquidity.
So it's presented as the smart, historical way to avoid selling something you think will be worth much more later.
Exactly. Don't part with the scarce asset if you don't have to.
Okay, so applying that historical lens to Bitcoin, the argument is that Bitcoin should be amazing collateral.
Right. The best collateral known to man is the phrase used. And the source lists why.
Why? What makes it good collateral?
Well, compared to, say, a house or stocks, Bitcoin is faster to move, easier to transport anywhere, incredibly divisible down to tiny amounts.
Easier to hold securely yourself, maybe.
Potentially, yeah. Easier custody. It's global, trades 24/7, liquid in pretty much any currency, accessible to almost anyone with internet.
And critically, unprintable. The lender knows the collateral itself can't be debased by someone printing more of it.
Right. Plus, a practical point the source makes, you can borrow against part of your Bitcoin stack. You can't easily borrow against, the fourth bedroom in your attic.
Good point. Okay, so if Bitcoin has all these theoretical advantages as collateral, why has borrowing against it been so problematic historically? That's the next question, right?
That's exactly the question the source poses. If it's so great, why the bad experiences?
And what were those bad experiences?
The talk details several issues seen in the past in the Bitcoin lending space. A big one was rehypothecation. Rehypothecation. It means the lender might take your Bitcoin collateral and lend it out again to someone else or trade with it while you still have your loan.
Whoa, okay. That sounds risky. Like, what if they lose it?
Exactly. Huge counterparty risk. Then there were the interest rates often called outrageous. We're talking 20% APR or even higher sometimes.
Compared to what for traditional loans?
Like a typical margin loan against stocks might be, say, 4 to 7%. So way higher for Bitcoin.
Why so high? Volatility.
That was often the excuse given, yeah. But the source argues Bitcoin's volatility has actually come down a lot as it's matured. It's now comparable to some big tech stocks, like Tesla, part of that Magnificent Seven group.
So if the volatility isn't that different, why the massive difference in rates?
Good question. Right. Other issues mentioned were just practical things. Difficulty getting the exact loan size you needed, lack of really solid institutional grade options, and generally poor user experience with things like refinancing or margin calls.
Okay, so we've got the fiat problem, Bitcoin is the scarce solution, the hodler's dilemma of needing cash, the history of borrowing, Bitcoin's potential as collateral, but the past problems with lending against it.
It sets the stage perfectly for the announcement made in the keynote.
Which is?
A potential solution. A new Bitcoin lending product designed specifically to address these issues and solve the hodler's dilemma.
How does it claim to do that? What are the key features?
Well, first and foremost, the big promise, no rehypothecation. Your Bitcoin collateral sits safe, it doesn't move, it isn't lent out again.
Okay, that addresses the biggest risk factor.
What else?
Lower cost. They're aiming for single-digit interest rates. The source even claims it can be lower than typical home equity loans, citing around 9.5% for those.
Single digits would be a big improvement over 20% plus. Huge difference. Then accessibility, a lower minimum loan size, mentioned as $10,000, makes it usable for more people. But they also mention the potential for huge loans, up to $1 billion.
And flexibility.
Yeah, things like allowing multiple loans, making refinancing easier, and just being easy to use fast approval, maybe 30 minutes for a down payment loan, no credit checks needed because it's all based on the collateral.
And easy withdrawal of the borrowed cash.
Right. The whole goal is stated very clearly. Let Bitcoiners tap into their capital and change the world without having to sell their sats.
So they can use their Bitcoin wealth for those big life moments, getting married, buying that house, handling an emergency, starting a business.
Exactly. Using the asset's value without giving up the asset itself. The speaker even mentions their company holds its own treasury in Bitcoin, about 1,500 BTC, and that the founder uses the product personally, proving their belief in it.
Sounds like they're trying to create a whole new cycle, a positive one, to replace that vicious fiat cycle we started with.
That's the vision presented. Borrowing fiat against Bitcoin actually keeps that Bitcoin off the market, potentially helping its value, the source suggests.
Accelerating the death of this awful thing, fiat, as the speaker puts it.
That's the idea expressed. And it increases Bitcoin's utility, makes it more useful now.
Which lets Bitcoiners use their wealth to improve their lives, maybe invest in things, build businesses.
Creating this positive, self-reinforcing loop. But, and this is crucial, there's a big warning attached.
Ah, yes, the metaphor.
The metaphor.
Yeah.
Debt is like fire.
Okay, how so?
Fire can be incredibly useful, right? It can heat your home, cook your food, power industry, but...
It can also burn your house down if you're not careful.
Exactly. Debt is a powerful tool, but it comes with risk. It needs to be handled responsibly.
So this isn't being sold as some magic bullet, get-rich-quick scheme.
Not at all. The source stresses, be responsible. This is still debt. Manage it wisely. The goal is to mature the whole Bitcoin ecosystem so HO dealers don't have to sell, allowing them to responsibly access their wealth when they need or want to.
Wow. Okay, so quite a journey in this deep dive. We went from the problem of fiat money and debt
To Bitcoin as this scarce alternative.
faced the hodler's dilemma, needing cash while holding.
Looked at the historical way around that, borrowing,
Examined why Bitcoin lending was tricky in the past.
and explored a new potential solution aiming for responsible, non-rehypothecated borrowing.
It really connects the dots from the macro problems of the financial system down to the very practical challenges and potential solutions for individuals holding Bitcoin.
Yeah, how do you make this potentially revolutionary asset actually usable in people's real lives?
And the talk leaves us with that final thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Life is short, take the trip.
But with Bitcoin, you just get to take a better one.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What does that mean for you, for how you manage your assets, for the life you want to build?
How could responsibly accessing the value you hold help you achieve those goals? Lots to mull over.
Indeed. Well, thanks for exploring all of that with us today. Hope you found this deep dive useful.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
If you did enjoy it, please follow, like, and share this deep dive. It really helps get the word out. And be sure to follow What Bitcoin Taught Me on all the platforms: Twitter, X, Nostr, Bluesky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Lots of ways to stay connected. Thanks for tuning in.